Good evening. I'll call the April 20th City Council meeting to order at 7 o'clock on Thursday. And the first item of business, if you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd ask my colleagues to review the agenda. I would like to remove item 6.2, which was going to be consideration of an ordinance dealing with the language of our disconnection for non-payment policy. We just want to modify it a little bit, make sure it's exactly how we want it. And so it's just not ready to be considered tonight. So we'll take that off. Are there any other items that you would like to be added or removed from the agenda? Okay, with that change, we will approve the agenda. On the agenda, there's two opportunities tonight to receive comments from citizens. One will be during a public hearing when we discuss the interim council member appointment. The other one will be number 8 when we listen to, we invite citizen remarks and comments. And so what I'll do is just kind of provide the rules of engagement, if you will, and kind of how we like those to be handled. We typically ask that you sign up so that we know you would like to speak, but if you don't sign up, we'll still recognize you. The first kind of item is that I'll address you, ask you to come forward. We would ask that you state your name and if you're a resident of Lexington, Virginia. If you would like to be contacted after this meeting, please provide your contact information to the clerk. We ask that you make your comments to all of council as a whole and do not engage the audience. Number 3, we ask that you be brief, state your position, and provide facts. Number 4, please provide written statements and or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to council. During this public comment period, debate is prohibited. This is a time for you to share your thoughts and your ideas with City Council, and we ask that you speak clearly into the microphone as we want to hear what you have to say. During this time, we allot you 3 minutes. It is not what we like to do to cut you off, but we'll get your attention at 3 minutes, and then we ask that you finish your thoughts. But it is not our practice to cut anyone off mid-sentence. If you are representing a group, we'd love to give you 5 minutes, and we would ask you to maybe identify your group, and they can stand, and we can know that they're with you. All of these guidelines, council and the mayor can make some exceptions at their discretion, but I will remind you that these are formal proceedings of City Council, and everything that you say tonight is recorded and streamed online. So thank you very much for allowing me to read that into the record. Moving on, we have no proclamations or presentations tonight, and so we will move right into the public hearing where we will appoint an interim City Council member tonight. For the public, I'll let you know that we did receive an 8th application. However, that 8th application did come in on August 18th. You might recall that our roadmap for filling this vacancy was that we needed to receive applications by August 6th at noon because we're constrained by guidelines that we must announce who we are considering and then have 7 days, at least 7 days for the public to know those names. All of this whole process has to happen in 30 days. If we were to open up this process to the individual that applied on the 18th, we would have deviated from this process and we would exceed the 30 days and we would lose the opportunity to appoint a City Council member because it would go to the circuit court judge. And we're not going to do that. So we will not include that person in the group of candidates. Before I open the public hearing, I would love to acknowledge the 7 individuals that did step forward and apply. And if you're here, please stand. I'd like to recognize Mr. Lee Davis, Mr. Jamie Gooden, Mr. Bob Hopkins, Mr. Dennis Ayers, Ms. D. Joyce Hayes, Mr. Nick Alexanders in the back, Mr. Jesse Lyons. In this time of need in Lexington, thank you very much for applying. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for answering our questions at the last meeting. And I'll have you know that we received significant public comment via email, and it was all positive, and it was about all of you. And so Lexington is very fortunate that you all are willing to serve. So thank you. I will now open the public hearing portion where we would invite members of the public that if you would like to address this topic, if you have something to say about one of the 7 candidates, please come forward and I'll check the sign-up sheets. So I have several signups. Are these, are any of the folks that signed up, would you like to speak on this topic, or would you like to speak later when it's about anything on your mind and not this nomination? Okay, would anyone like to speak about the nominations for the interim city council? Okay, I will close the public hearing and then I will turn to my colleagues for consideration.
Like you said, I think we had an amazing turnout for this. I really appreciate everyone who is willing to serve their community. We had 7 great applicants. And I moved to appoint Jesse Lyons to fill the open council seat.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say, we're lucky to have, all of you apply. I think that anybody, that applied in this pool of candidates is well qualified to be on city council. And, we hope that, and I certainly hope that you all will consider a run in the future. The one candidate that did stand out to me, was Mr. Dennis Ayers. And the reason why is because he, is the only one that had previously been elected by the public. That being said, I would vote for anybody of this 7 pool candidate that, you know, my colleagues feel comfortable with. So I think y'all are all qualified, and I'm looking forward to serving with Mr. Lyons.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll echo what Nick said. I appreciate what he said. Agreed.
We are fortunate to have the level of engagement of qualified individuals who want to participate in this process, and also would like to thank y'all for stepping up.
And any one of the 7 could have taken on this role and done a fantastic job with it. Difficult decision. Normally, this is a decision that's done by voters in the city of Lexington. So this task was left to us. And I know that if this vote passes, that Jesse will serve us well. And, excuse me, Mr. Lyons will serve us well. And this could have been any one of you. And so I'm hoping that the rest of the group will consider some of the boards and commissions that we have availability of positions on. And that will give you your opportunity to continue to serve the city of Lexington in more ways than what you already have. And we appreciate that.
And just a brief caveat on what I said. I know there was another applicant that has previously been elected. Dennis Ayers is the only one that's been elected to Lexington City Council, just as a point of clarification.
Okay, thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Mr. Betts?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alexander?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Passes unanimously. So thank you, Mr. Lyons. And thank you to all the applicants. Thank you very much. We now look at the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? So we'll approve them as presented. And then now we move to citizen remarks and comments. And I do have 5 individuals that have signed up. And so I'll go through these 5, and then we will see if there's anyone that didn't sign up that would like to address City Council. And so first up is Ms. Debbie Funkhauser, and then followed by Robin LeBlanc.
Good evening, interim mayor, city councilors, city manager, staff, and fellow citizens. I'm Debbie Funkhauser, and I live at 625 South Main Street, which backs up to Plunkett's Meadow and the wooded ravine along Sarah's Run. I'm here to add my voice to the request of residents in other neighborhoods to consider culling the overpopulation of deer within the city limits. When we moved here 10 years ago, I imagined planting gardens of flowers and vegetables. After a couple of futile years of being outcompeted by the resident deer herd, I admitted defeat. My ability to enjoy the outdoor space at home has been greatly diminished. I have watched the local herd increase in size and boldness. The pickings are good and the predators are few. I was frustrated by the nuisance factor and the negative ecological impact of the abundant deer. And having lived in New England for almost 30 years, I was well aware of the dangers of Lyme disease. I was not aware of the serious threat of alpha-gal syndrome, AGS. However, with time, an increasing number of my friends and acquaintances developed the syndrome. My concern, indeed alarm, grew after attending the recent informative session presented by the Farm Bureau and subsequently reading the series published by the News Gazette. I now know that the incidence of alpha-gal syndrome is particularly high in Virginia and here in Rockbridge County. I now know that consequences go well beyond the inability to eat mammalian meat and other products, but it can affect blood transfusions, the ability to take many common medications, including poisonous snake antivenom, and the use of various personal care products. I now know that Lone Star ticks are particularly aggressive and actually approach victims rather than waiting for us to pass by them. I know that in one study, 20 to 25% of Virginians have antibodies against alpha-gal in their blood. Even without developing the syndrome, negative consequences can occur. I learned at the Farm Bureau event that hunting is our primary means of controlling deer populations, and that the number of hunters and processors has declined significantly. And of course, there's no regular hunting allowed within our city limits. I know you're going to talk about this later. I understand that even well-supervised culling by archers and sharpshooters carries risk to the public. Is there any possibility of trapping deer and moving them out of the city for humane processing? I suggest that Lexington, along with our neighboring jurisdictions, appeal to the state for funding and support to address this increasingly serious public health issue. I personally would choose the risk of supervised culling over the risk of the deer-carried ticks themselves. The cost to the city might pale in comparison to the cost absorbed by individuals facing lifelong, potentially life-threatening consequences, the burden to our strained medical system, and the impact to our local agricultural community. I'm especially concerned about this threat to our younger population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. LeBlanc, and then Ken Wade is on deck.
Hi, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity you always provide citizens to share opinions. I'm Robin LeBlanc. I am the Vice President of Care Rockbridge, and I know some of our board members, as well as some of our supporters, are here in the audience, and perhaps they would want to stand to be recognized. I'm here today to comment on a memo and draft policy submitted by the City Manager's Office to the Council for consideration in the work session preceding this meeting, and perhaps you didn't actually get to it yet. Pointing to the cost of events like the street closures for annual MLK parade, the memo proposes a policy of charging a fee for a permit and the cost of policing the event. The policy draft notes that the city may, and this emphasis in the original memo, consider waiving police costs for events officials consider to be beneficial to the public. The memo lists the policing cost of some events, with the MLK and Lee Jackson parades highlighted in red. And I guess because of calendar realities, they also fall at the top of the list. The draft events policy is unconstitutional on its face. Writing for the majority in Forsyth County versus Nationalist Movement, Justice Blackmun explains that this sort of policy, which was almost exactly like the policy that was presented to you in draft form, is, quote, unconstitutionally content-based because it requires that the administrator, in order to assess accurately the cost of security for parade participants, must examine the content of the message conveyed, estimate the public response to that content, and judge the number of police necessary to meet that response. For example, the police judge the potential threat of white supremacy to the MLK parade and thus augment the number of police. But they do that because they know what we're there to talk about. Publicizing the cost of events like our 2 January parades, as this memo does, also works. Intentionally, or probably most not intentionally, to intimidate potential speakers by raising the perceived cost of political speech and encouraging resistance from people who don't want to pay for policing for speech they're not interested in. Freedom of assembly and of speech are costly, but they are the fundamental political rights of our constitutional republic. As we are learning from events across the country these days, it is never impolite, nor is it ever too early to express concern when First Amendment rights are on the line. It is my hope, and I think it's the hope of many of the supporters in my organization, that this policy will find its way quickly off the table and into the trash can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ken Wade, and then Denny Jarvis is on deck.
Good evening. I'm Ken Wade from Fairfield, Virginia. And I just have a very brief comment on the same proposal or analysis that got published regarding giving the council authority to cut back or change or approve who gets to parade around town. And that analysis was based upon the overtime cost of some police, public workers. And I just want to point out that that's a silly way to look at such a problem, because it completely ignores the humongous economic benefit. Each of these parades, every event we have here, brings in people from far and wide, and they're spending money, the gas, hotel, whatever, but there's a humongous economic impact, a very big multiple for everyone who shows up. So if this were to proceed, you may save $42,000 in overtime, but you're going to cost multiples of that, exponents of that, in terms of tax revenue and revenue to the merchants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Denny Jarvis, and then Mohammed Kamara, you're on deck, please.
I'm Danny Jarvis. I've been a resident of Lexington for almost 30 years now. I know several of you from prior meetings, and but also in other parts of our community. I'm one of the organizers of the initial MLK March, and I want to make a point of saying that what we do on MLK Day is a march, and is a direct connection between what we do and what Martin Luther King and the Southern Leadership Conference, the Students Against Nonviolent Act, and that is a difference between a march and a parade. All right, so please remember that. I continue in the role as one of the organizers. I'm also currently treasurer of CARE. I'm retired faculty from the Williams School at Washington and Lee. I am speaking regarding the memo and draft policy. I was here during the working session, and when Mr. Sigler brought up having dealt with some type of consideration of a policy as far back as 2017. I'll remind folks that it was 2016 that we first organized the initial MLK parade. And at that time, there was quite a bit of adverse public reaction. There were specific and direct threats against individuals who are organizers, as well as against the parade in general. There was little police, sheriff, W&L, or VMI protection at the time. So we organized and managed our own security and protection. Despite that, we were stalked by people with their phones, tracking us there. And we were also told by people that they were there in order to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And there are stories of people marching in those initial parades, seeing at least one gentleman with his sidearm, standing at the curb, making sure everybody saw him as we walked by. Subsequent to that, in 2017, then we ended up with something like Charlottesville, right? Where there was marches, there was reaction, there was violence, there was injury, and there was death. After that, here locally, we did start to enjoy a lot of cooperation from Lexington PD, from Chief Roman, who was in place at the time, W&L, Rockbridge County Sheriff, Virginia State Police. And that's been an important part of our parade since that time. When we were able to do the 2017 march, the participants were so engaged and so glad that they could do that, that they saw so many other community members who felt in the way that they did. And so, you know, they hadn't really had an outlet to be able to show those kinds of things. So heard many comments and continue to hear many comments from residents of how the MLK March is one of the things that makes them proud to be living in this city. So what's the purpose of the idea? You know, there are, I've sat through the draft or the working session open. You know, there are both, I'd say, some cost recapture elements to it, but also then potentially you're talking about some revenue generating pieces from the policy. So during my W&L time, am I running out of time? Okay, during my W&L time, I sat through many events or many meetings, and you know how much I do not like meetings where we were supposed to consider these things. But essentially for the MLK March, what you're asking us to do is pay for protection, right? That's what's going on there. Conceptually, you could ask people to pay for protection when they cross the street. You know, tap their phone, the crosswalk signal comes on, right? You could wristband kids on Jackson Avenue for Halloween, right? It'd be just like paying for a wristband that you do for the community festival. So those are conceptual ideas, and they aren't really what's practical here. You know, practical matter is those really are far-fetched ideas, but they also show why including the MLK March in this policy is a bad idea. The people that are in the march are residents of Lexington, they're voters and they're taxpayers. They've already paid for this protection. Okay. It's not the same as pay as you go. They've paid for this in the same way that they paid for trash. We don't charge people in Lexington by the bag, right? You know, pay for specific services. So I am asking that you do not include the MLK March in this policy. With competent counsel, I'm sure you'll find ways to potentially do that as the process continues. Again, as a practical matter, since I've sat through these meetings before, if this is considered as a revenue enhancement matter, you've got assets in the city already that you could do that. You have 80 parking spots at McCrum, right? And the firehouse lot. 80 spots times 250 weekdays times 10 hours a day gives you 200,000 parking hours, right? That you potentially could, as they say in some business industries, you could monetize. It's quick, it's straightforward, even at $1 an hour, right? Which would have to be the cheapest parking rates in the state of Virginia, if maybe not nationwide. There would be a revenue enhancement to be able to cover what is clearly a public good and a benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute my thoughts to what Robin and Dennis have already spoken about with regards to the proposed policy of that will lead to potentially charging organizations for organizing events in the city of Lexington. I am a 25-year resident of Lexington, and I've been grateful for the opportunities that I've had here interacting with members of this community and others who come from outside to take part in the events that happen here in Lexington. I'm particularly grateful for the opportunity to be a member of CARE as a board member and working with my colleagues, but also with the members of City Council, whether it's the Lexington Police Department or the Fire Department, to organize what we consider to be a civic responsibility, but also a civic service to Lexington more specifically and to the wider region, but also much more theoretically, philosophically, but also practically as contribution to the democratic process. The First Amendment, of course, is a right that is available to all of us, and we hope that it will stay that way. And that is one of the reasons we are grateful in so many ways for the opportunity we have here in this country, in this city, in the state of Virginia, to exercise the ability to express ourselves in the ways that we do. And the things that we do, for example, the MLK Parade is an important event. We could come up with many metaphors that will describe its value that you cannot put a price to. Of course, it is a priceless event in the sense or similar sense in which a smile is priceless to someone who is having a bad day and who is not expecting a smile and a genuine smile. And sometimes we put monetary value onto things. And I understand there might be budgetary constraints that we are dealing with. But the value that accrues from the activity of organizing an event like the MLK Parade cannot be quantified because it brings members of this community together. And the MLK Parade brings people together and specifically requires participants in this parade not to do anything that will infringe upon the well-being and the democratic rights of members of this community. It actually encourages people and invites everyone who is willing to join us because it is a positive organization. It is a positive event that looks to celebrate the human dignity of every individual, of every member of this community. And so my hope is that this opportunity that we have to talk about this will yield something that will lead to removing this idea from the table so that we can go about our business and doing what we do best, that is contributing, if you will, to the spiritual, intellectual, and moral well-being of the members of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to address council tonight? Okay, I'll close the citizen remarks and comments section. I will like to just share we had a closed session at the beginning of the work session. We came out of the closed session and we discussed this particular topic and the memo that several speakers have referenced. The audio from our work session will be available tomorrow and uploaded to our online Dropbox folder. So that will be available tomorrow, and you can hear what we discussed. Obviously, Denny was here, but for everyone else, if you would like to hear what we discussed, please do so. No decisions were made, no intent to infringe on anyone's First Amendment rights, and we really appreciate the comments because it was a draft policy, and that's why it was brought forward. And that's where this council would never want anything that didn't align with our morals and ideals here in the city of Lexington. So we got a lot of good feedback from council members and obviously good feedback tonight. So thank you very, very much for sharing your thoughts with us. Colleagues, now I'd like to turn to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Driscoll. Aye. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn and Vice Mayor Alexander.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, so we'll move on to the boards and commissions. Mr. Smith with the Blue Ridge Resource Authority.
Briefly, myself and Director Dudley and former authority board member Dan Lyons, we all traveled down to Dublin, Virginia to get a visit to the New River Resource Authority landfill. It's roughly 10 times the operation of our local landfill. And Director of the authority, Joe Levine, is a class of 91 BMI graduate. So it was just very informative. We learned a lot about how other landfills operate, and we have some new tools to work with here. And that's just sharing the fact that we visited another landfill. Oh, and we bought a bulldozer
At
On-
Lamp.
at our landfill, not theirs.
Wonderful. Mr. Betts, you and I serve on the Jail Capital Committee. I'd like to just share that we will meet again September 8th. But maybe more importantly, for those following along, there's a work session by the County Board of Supervisors on Monday, and they will be discussing what we all learned from the interjurisdictional meeting, and they'll be discussing the sheriff's office and the jail. It's on their in their work session, so that will help our capital
What
committee.
day is their work session?
It's Monday,
Monday.
the 24th. And then eventually Monday, the 24th, will also be Mr. Suter's last meetings as county administrator. I just share that. But moving on, Main Street, Lexington, Mr. Smith.
Main Street Lexington unfortunately did not advance in the GAMS, the Great American Main Street Award competition this year. Told it's not unusual for first-time applicants to make it past the first round. This weekend will be a ribbon cutting and grand opening at the new Spice and Tea Exchange on South Main, and there's a ribbon cutting set for the Old Head Records, corner of Nelson and Jefferson, on Thursday, September 3rd. We've gotten good response with sponsors for the Line Dance Lex, including in-kind media sponsorships from 3WZ, Big Dog, and WNRN. Also secured a well-known instructor DJ crew from a country station in Richmond, and we're now they're starting their big marketing push, so Main Street is expecting ticket sales to ramp up in the 4 weeks leading up to the event. Marketing is underway for the end of summer sale, formerly known as the summer sidewalk sale, which will coincide with the line dance Lex. Thank you. On the weekend of September 18th through 20th. We're also finalizing plans for the Get Downtown event with Washington and Lee first-year students, which will take place on Tuesday, September 1st. Student planners at Washington Lee told us to expect nearly 500 participants. The Freedom Food Festival steering committee just made its donations to participating nonprofits, and even though ticket sales were down about 20% this year, due likely to extreme heat that weekend, we're still able to distribute over $34,000 to 15 local nonprofits and community organizations. And additionally, they're working on finding a backup date for the Christmas parade after the little mix-up last year as a result. So we will have a backup plan in case the first date is canceled. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Ms. Strawn, Planning Commission.
Planning Commission met last Thursday on August 13th, and we approved a certificate of appropriateness for new signage, Pack and Mail More at 449 East Nelson Street. They're under new ownership. And we continued our discussion of a residential plan development district. And then we looked at our work plan for the year. We've just about finished everything for last year's plan, and things we're going to consider for this year's work plan are retail cannabis sales and building height. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Betts, Regional Tourism.
I do not report this evening.
As far as RARO, I would just share for those following along the rec center discussion that's really occurring at the County Board of Supervisors. That will also be on the agenda for their regular meeting on Monday. And they've made some modifications to what they're discussing, and that they plan to evaluate the financing of that project with the tennis courts removed. As you recall, there was a $1.5 million amount pegged to the relocation and rebuilding of the tennis courts. They have not identified a location yet, and therefore they don't feel that they would that would never make sense to borrow $1.5 million if they have no plan for how to spend it just yet. And then they're also strategizing on that fund of the $4 million that they thought about paying the interest at the beginning and contributing, how they would maybe deploy that. So they're looking at that and maybe paying off a loan for some property in Rafine and then and lowering some debt service. So they're continuing to work that. That'll be Monday. Anyone that wants to attend, that meeting's at 5:30 following the 4:30 work session. But that concludes my report on RARO. Threshold, Vice Mayor Alexander or Mr. Betts?
No report.
Thank you. For interim mayor, I don't have any formal report except I'll amplify the ribbon cutting for the Spice and Tea Exchange tomorrow. It's not every day that a new business opens on Main Street, and that is at noon tomorrow. It's exciting. So I'll now turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items before we turn to the deer culling request memorandum that's in your packet. First, I want to let council know that the EDA is working with John Eastwood of Washington and Lee, and he's putting together a class, an independent study class to have students study what's going on in our second and third stories in our downtown to try and assess how much of it is used, what's it used for, what part of it is vacant. It's kind of an exciting study. It really relates to how much untapped potential do we have in our historic district. One of the students, I think, has been involved in the Strong Towns organization as well. So Natalie is extremely bright, and I'm looking forward to working with her in that study along with Dr. Eastwood. As I've mentioned before in a written communication, tomorrow I'll be out of the office making economic development calls. I'll be down in Roanoke, and then out of the office next week. And so Jennifer Bell will be the acting city manager in my absence. Coming up on the September 3rd agenda, whether it's going to be in a work session or in a regular meeting remains to be seen, but we'd like to reinvigorate conversation around the co-location of a Virginia Department of Health facility along with the Department of Social Services building at 25 CJ Morrison Drive. As members of council who have been discussing the DSS and Health and Human Services for a decade know, the concept is that we would locate two facilities at that location. One is DSS, which will be finished September 24th. And the other would be a building that hasn't been designed yet, which would be a Virginia Department of Health location. Could have the Office of Drinking Water, could have several state organizations locating offices there very conveniently for the residents served in the region. This would be similar to the DSS project, intergovernmental cooperation among Buena Vista, Rockbridge, and Lexington. And I think the original site was purchased with this in mind. We do, as you may recall, have a $2.5 million congressionally directed spending allocation, thanks to Senators Warner and Kane. And that money is to be available very soon, probably at the start of the next federal fiscal year. We will need more than that allocation in order to build that building. We are trying to figure out exactly how to do that. And so we're hoping to reintroduce that topic. Just so you know, this is not an identified project in our capital improvement program. So the reintroduction would be to help get that identified and start the conversations with our intergovernmental partners at BV and Rockbridge about that opportunity. And unless you have any questions about those items, I was going to turn to the deer overpopulation memorandum, unless you have other questions.
Well, just one question on would the state participate in any of that funding?
We certainly hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obvious
And that's
question, but
establishing it as a project would help us formally reach out to the state to make that a project and something in the governor's requested budget.
Do we know who the fiscal agent would be, or have we had any discussions about that?
I believe it would be us again. I mean, we own the property, and I think all along the intent was that Lexington would be the owner of the two buildings, or however many buildings are built on the campus, but we would serve as the fiscal agent. Thanks. Okay. Mayor and council, we received a request from some residents to formally cull the deer herd in Lexington. I asked Chief Dahl to attend this evening. He's in the back and available to answer any questions. There are basically two options, one of which we're already using, which is the urban archery program, where interested parties can apply to the Lexington Police Department if they have property owner permission and the property is at least 1 acre in size or more, or collectively if there's multiple properties, so long as the sum of them is over 1 acre and they're contiguous. We have issued permits like that in the past, and we have an ongoing program where people can apply for that today. As is mentioned in the memorandum, we have 2 urban archery seasons. One is from September 5th through October 2nd, and then there's one in January where we can authorize people to discharge a bow and arrow in our city limits, which is normally not allowed. But under this program, a permit can be issued for that. As I mentioned, we have one active permit that's been issued and another one has been applied for that program presently. So the urban archery program exists and is something that we have used in the past and which residents or out of town residents are willing to apply for, and we will review them on the merits. But those are limited in scale and size, and I think that's not necessarily exactly what the residents are asking for. They're asking for a more systematic deer herd culling. So that would require the deer population reduction program. That would be the next level where we would formally apply to the Department of Wildlife Resources and try and systematically cull the deer herd. That would be more expensive. To me, that is not something that I'm supportive of, at least with the information that I have right now, because I don't think the risks outweigh I don't think the benefits outweigh the risks. So happy to turn it over for your discussion, and a reminder that Chief Dahl is here to answer any of your questions about how that might work.
Have there been any new applications for the urban archery?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So far, we've issued one permit. The permit process is relatively simple. Someone comes to LPD, fills out the application. They demonstrate that they have a hunting license, a resident hunting license issued by the Commonwealth, and they have to have an indication on their license that they're licensed to hunt archery. Because of course it's an archery hunt inside the city. And then they have to demonstrate that they've got written permission from the landowners where they're going to be hunting. So not especially difficult to do if somebody's interested. And we have issued one permit so far this year. And then as Mr. Carroll said, there's another one where someone's expressed interest, sort of collected the material they need. They just are waiting on written permission, I think, from the landowner. So there's those 2 are in progress for the upcoming season.
If somebody has all their criteria met, how long does it take to get the application through?
Oh, a few minutes. It's
Yeah.
very simple.
Great.
Yeah, just to review those documents by our community service officer, and then we can issue the permit.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we have information on how many deer have been harvested through archery program in the city so far?
I don't, and I doubt Chief Dahl does. We think this is fairly routine, that this is done annually, but it never really rises to the level of being on the chief's desk or on my desk to know about and review.
Yeah, I've been part of conversations in the past about the deer problem and instituting an urban archery program. And it seems like that's where the conversation stops. I never get information back on how effective it is, the way it's set up right now.
Be happy to review some records and see how many permits have been issued in recent years, because I don't have that data.
Just curiosity.
Yeah.
And do we, or are there other, is there more information that shows or supports urban archery programs being effective? When you take the deer out of the city, then the deer in the county just move back in. That's always been, I guess, a curiosity. Like you take.
Deer do not
how do you-
recognize
how do you-
political boundaries.
That's
It's
right.
quite true.
How do you prevent the deer that now that we have vacancies or would have vacancies inside the city
Yes.
to keep,
Yeah.
you know, where.
I do think the two permits that have been applied for are not going to move the needle in terms of what I think the residents are concerned about and what I observe in my front and backyard.
Chief, when a permit is issued, how many deer may be taken under a permit?
It's subject to the seasonal bag limits set by DWR.
So not a lot. If I
Yes, sir.
see 25 deer on my property every night.
Right. If you had applied for urban archery, you'd have to follow those same bag limits and normal season restrictions.
And they're allowed to own, and they're only allowed to take, is it doe?
Antlerless, I think is the way
Antlerless.
it's described.
So,
here.
okay. And so I'll just share that I reached out to the district health director from the Central Shenandoah Health District, Xavier Crockett. So I reached out to him Monday, I followed up today, and he and I have traded emails, and it was timely because there's a statewide discussion right now with the state entomologist, and they're actually working with Charlottesville, and he's invited me to participate in some calls and some not data gathering, but just their strategy sessions on how they're statewide dealing with this problem, because they are seeing with the drought, deer migrating to water, you know, and a lot of people live around water. And so, you know, you've got Woods Creek going through the city, and that can be contributing this year to even more deer in the city. And then, of course, the tick-borne illnesses. And so that's really the reason I reached out to the health director, the district health director, because I kind of wanted data to know if this year is worse than other years, because I didn't know about alpha-gal syndrome until this year or last year, you know, when you first started to hear about it. So he and I are going to get back together. I'll either participate in some of these calls or I'll work with someone from Tom's staff, but just to try to get smarter, because what they're looking at is strategies beyond culling, beyond killing the deer. Essentially, if there's other strategies that are non-lethal that can help rehome deer, essentially. And so at least I wanted to do that, because this is the argument that the deer are eating flowers is one thing, but the argument that they're contributing to a public health situation for young people and older people that want to be outside and play and walk on our trails, because that's in my opinion way more serious than, respectfully, someone's flowers being eaten. But I can't risk, you know, my family or folks being subjected to tick-borne illnesses, because they seem to be debilitating. And so that's where I was taking that direction with the health director. So can you talk a little bit about what it would look like if we did ramp it up and we utilized police officers or expert marksmen, and what that actually looks like for those that didn't read the read ahead memos, and how it utilizes night vision and silencers to take deer. Can you just kind of share what that looks like if we go to the next level? Because I wouldn't want to encourage that without the public knowing what that actually looks like if they were to come across a sniper in the city of Lexington. I'm being serious. That's what our read ahead items portrayed. And I just feel that we would want to know what that looks like, respectfully.
It's a good question. I mean, it's not something that I'm real excited about having the police department do, for all the obvious reasons. I think other cities, the information I was able to find is that other cities have participated in programs like that. Some cities have elected to use their police department. Some cities have hired a professional organization to come and do that work for them, which is probably wise. At least in our situation, if that's something that council felt like they were interested in pursuing, you have to apply for a permit from Department of Wildlife Resources. And then you have, even under the permit, you have some requirements. And that is, like you said, it's using suppressed weapons, having police officers sort of cordon off sections where the hunting or the culling is taking place. You know, marked police officers so the public is aware that it's happening there. They have to be in an elevated position, just like the urban archery program, shooting down into the ground to minimize any sort of problem downrange from wherever the target animal is. things like that. It has to take place at night, when, there's, less people around. So it's, if it was something that you came across, in the middle of the night in Lexington with, like you said, a sniper sitting in a tree shooting deer, you might wonder. So I think if we ever did something like that, certainly we'd want to have the public involved. We'd want to do a lot of discussion, publicly, and advertising and social media, so everybody was aware of it and nobody was surprised by it. And I think my recommendation to Mr. Carroll has been that if that's something the city chooses to pursue, probably the best option is finding a professional organization to do that. One last requirement I almost forgot to mention, but obviously any of the animals taken under a deer culling program like that have to be field dressed and processed, and then the meat turned over to charitable organizations to be distributed so it doesn't go to waste.
And should the city decide to utilize hunters with non-lead based bullets and sound suppression, where are the geographic locations in the city where that could happen? Would that happen on city-owned property, in parks, or on private property? I mean, again, since we have the public here and this is a point of interest and I'm interested in it, are we talking about along Woods Creek Trail on city-owned property? We in the past, W&L was not open to culling happening on their property when VMI was, but that happened on North Post. Woods Creek had to be marked off and closed in the mornings and in the evenings, and that of course impacts residents. So I just kind of wondering where we would be potentially doing that.
I can't imagine you could do it any place other than city property. I can't.
So Jordan's Point Park,
Yeah, I don't see how we could.
Field. I mean, that's where I think, in full disclosure, the city is 2.5 square miles. We've got, the property that we have available at our opportunity to do culling under that ramped up process, because I don't think you would do it in cemeteries, but you could do it in cemeteries. And this, again, in full disclosure, I'd like the public to know what we're talking about, and if they, so that they can hear it all. That was in the memo, but
Right.
I'm kind of saying it out loud so everyone hears what was.
I don't see how the city could possibly coerce property owners to allow hunting on their property or deer culling. So I can imagine it would only take place on city property. And of course, as you mentioned, Mayor, 2.5 square miles, there's not a lot of city property, and the areas that are city property are very well used, I think, for the most part. So
Just a comment, the deer are a problem. They're a nuisance. There's a lot of them this year. I worry about hitting them at night. When I pull in my driveway, there's usually one standing there. I mean, the problem is exacerbated by the country club being under development. That's 100 acres. That's pretty much off limits to them right now because there's so much construction and everything going on that I think it will help some once come May or sooner before then, next spring, when that 100 acres is available, that they'll move off somewhat.
I have noticed deer in parts of the city that I'm not familiar with seeing deer this year. So I mean, and we've heard from residents it's a problem. I can't remember where I heard it, but somebody brought up to me deer birth control. I think that there's maybe some type of birth control that deers can be given. I don't know much about it, but might be something that could be explored.
I will not pretend to be an expert on that.
Maybe kind of like we're dealing with the cats with the spay and neutering. I don't know if there's anything for wildlife that could be utilized like that, but I've heard that's a thing. I don't know. I haven't explored it though.
I don't know why you're looking at me like you might be me to research their birth control. I'll be happy to do that, but
So just throwing it out there.
I'm not aware of
as
that.
a maybe alternative measure to explore if we're not going to go with the more intense deer culling
Well, that's where I
process
was
right now.
curious about what David was saying, that I think what you're saying is that there's looking at alternative ways too.
And so that's what I'll try to be a participant in
Yeah.
those and some other cities that are dealing with this same problem. And as far as I'm concerned, I appreciate the citizens bringing this forward, because I think everyone that lives in Lexington is seeing an uptick in deer, no pun intended. And I feel like hearing the options of the urban archery program that's already existing that we really probably wasn't on our radar, but the next option, I think we need to know what that looks like. And if that's something that we want, I would hope that citizens will reach out in the next couple of weeks and talk to, you know, city council members and say, hey, I heard that. I understand that. We got to do that. Because I think there's reservations from our staff, our chief of police, our city manager, and of course, their opinions matter quite a bit. They're the professionals, but ultimately they're going to be responsive to city council. And so if city council hears from an overwhelming number of residents that are just like, we don't mind that there's snipers at Brubaker Field or at Waddell Elementary School at night, you know, in those fields, that's what we're talking about, but let us know respectfully. I think that's what we would like to have.
When this occurred some years ago, and I'm talking probably 10, 15 years ago, it was done so discreetly, you know, when you asked, oh, I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything. And, you know, we were advised that it did happen. It really did happen, and it did improve. And I think at that time, if property owners outright gave permission to go on their property, then perhaps that's what they did as well. And Nick, they are about a block away from you. My grandchildren have named them. They're there so much.
I've seen them right around the neighborhood,
Yeah.
which is, I'm not familiar, you know, it's the first time I've lived there, at that residence for 5 years, and it's the first time I've seen deer, and I've seen them quite a bit.
Question, do we know what our neighbors in the county are doing? Are they contemplating anything? Or,
I'm not aware of what they're doing. I mean, I don't think you need county permission to discharge.
no, it's to your earlier point that deers don't necessarily understand jurisdictional boundaries. And so is there any kind of cooperation to look at? And also, are there any other, I mean, what is Stanton facing this? What are they doing? I'm just thinking of other places.
And that's why I engaged Mr. Crockett, quite honestly. I mean, I said, we're a small city. I asked him within his health district what he's seeing. And that's where he looped me in to say, hey, we're having these conversations with Charlottesville and other cities. And I said, hey, I'm happy to learn.
Well, could you ask them about the deer birth control?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I feel like we've covered this topic. Chief Dahl, thank you very much for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd ask the city attorney if you have anything to report.
Not much tonight, Mr. Mayor. Did want to let you know I have been working with Mr. Dameron in Public Works on an RFP and draft contract for some work at Hopkins Green. I know he's anxious to get that out, so that should be going out soon. Working with Mr. Carroll and Jess Burks at the police department on a licensing agreement for an app. We thought we had that finished, but we got some more edits back, so get that knocked out next week, hopefully. Other than that, been fielding questions from staff and Mr. Carroll on a variety of legal issues. And I can confirm that Roanoke County has a deer problem. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is the RFP, is that for the trellis, the
Pergola, yeah.
pergola? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, new business. We're going to discuss a resolution pertaining to writing off bad debt in the utility fund. I would ask either the city manager or the finance director to cover this topic.
Just by way of introduction, about a year ago, we brought forward a larger write-off of bad debt, which was several years that had accumulated since the pandemic. And I think council was concerned that there were so many years. The sum of them was a larger number, but the individual years by themselves were not so bad, other than the years immediately following the pandemic. So what we'd like to make our practice would be to do this sort of on an annual basis to bring this forward. And turn it over to Jennifer Bell to explain why we have any bad debt, and this is related to our utilities, generally speaking, and what steps we've taken to collect, and why we are suggesting this be written off.
Thank you very much. So the city currently collects utility deposits of $299 from any rentals. And we do that because in general, those are more likely to be the properties where the tenant leaves and moves out of town without paying their final water bill. So the numbers that you see today, they are net of any deposits that we were able to apply toward their debt. And what we have been looking at, and by we, I mean Public Works and myself, are the last 2 fiscal years being FY25 and FY26. We would like to continue to try to collect those outstanding balances and then write off the debt that is older than that. And so to Tom's point, we would next year in FY28, I would come and ask to write off FY25, and we would continue to try to collect on 26 and 27. So you'll see these numbers have been going down, and you know, we do think that's because of the use of the water deposits. And I think that's all I have to say, other than in order to collect the debts, we do reach out several times to the customer once the water has been turned off. And Stephanie Tomlin in Public Works, who's been very helpful helping me gather this information. She will call and text and email and send letters trying to collect the debt. And then, I mean, at this point, we feel like we have gone down all the possible avenues, and we did consider whether or not it might be beneficial to the city to hire an attorney or some sort of debt collector firm to try to go after these accounts. But as you can see by the total balances here, it's unlikely that we would pay less in attorney fees or debt collector fees than just writing off the debt.
And we're talking about $5,000. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
By way of comparison, for I don't know the numbers for FY26, but for FY27, the total utility collection, I think, is $9 million is our forecasted revenue. So that's for the current fiscal year. This is in past years, but we're talking about $5,000 of write-off versus about $9 million on an annual basis. This is over 3 fiscal years. So
Yeah.
Cumulatively, it's an incredibly high rate of collections that we receive from most normal customers through.
I think the point was well taken that the legal fees will likely be higher. I mean, with the amount of customers, it's was it 26, like 28 customers. It's not all one customer. I mean, I think the legal fees will probably be higher than that.
Well, most of the folks who do this, and there are several firms that do it and that I've recommended to other localities, they do it because you can usually charge on top of the debt of the fee. So you can actually recover it if you can recover anything from the debtor. The problem is, A, you've got a statute of limitations problem, right? 3 years. And B, this is such a small amount, it wouldn't be worth it to them to take on such a small caseload.
Right, because they want at least 10% of the
Exactly.
collection.
They want a bigger beginning number to put in the.
Yeah.
I think if we were going to do that, it would have been, we should have done it the last time, but
And then for debts, real estate taxes, things like that, there can be a time when it does make sense to hire somebody specific.
In many cases, if a tenant doesn't pay the final bill, the property owner actually becomes responsible because of a owner authorization form that the owner has submitted to the city. So the owner, before they want to essentially rent the property again and have the water, have a new account issued or a new bill issued, they're responsible. And that's a relationship between the owner of the property and their tenant in their lease. I mean, that's so.
And if that bill is left, and at the end of 30 days, when the landlord settles the move out, then that bill should be paid out of the deposit that was made. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yes. So I think this is before us. We're pretty fortunate in the grand scheme of things, in the multi-millions that we collect annually. This is not a huge amount.
Drop in the bucket, if you will.
Good one. So I would have this be for your consideration.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2026-15, authorizing the city to write off bad debt in the utility fund for fiscal 27.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alexander.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and thank you to staff for making this a regular practice, since it helps keep our books clean, and thank you very much. So this concludes the open portion of our meeting. We do have scheduled a closed meeting now. Typically, we'll go into closed session. We will come out of closed session, and we will not take any action at that time. And so I would look to my colleagues and the Vice Mayor if to read a motion to see if we should go into closed session.
I move that Lexington City Council convene in a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3 for the purpose of discussing and considering the disposition of city-owned real property located along Waddell Street, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the city's bargaining position or negotiating strategy.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Strawn, for the second. Roll call vote, Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Betts. Mayor Sigler.
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you.
They look just like mine. I was like, did I actually bring them and put them in front of you?
Yeah. But you're paying down the road on it. You know, Lex running 5 for.
Well, I got mine for free.
Oh, well, that's even better.
Because somebody left them in the golf cart. Actually, I don't even remember where I got it.
Yeah.
Actually. They were.
Oh,
But
okay.
you can't tell. They're unisex.